my name is Claudia Bernier.
My name is Matthew.
Mi nombre es Miguel Marcelino.
My name is Ali Hyder.
Kai Cos. Christy Yoon.
Bashir Makki.
Carlos Catalano.
Tess Von Rudin.
My name is Sarah Adabumi, and I am a NASA intern.
Jesse Moody, and I'm a NASA intern.
Pathways Engineering intern.
I'm a NASA intern.
I'm a NASA intern at NASA Kennedy Space Center.
At Ames Research Center.
NASA Langley in Virginia.
At Goddard Space Flight Center.
OZ Department at Johnson Space Center.
Of the Human Factors Engineering team at the Marshall Space Flight Center.
My name is Tina Shermer, and I'm a Pathways intern at NASA's Glenn Research Center.
I'm Jamarius Reed, and I'm a NASA intern for the Office of STEM Engagement, working in the Aeronautics Directorate at NASA Ames Research Center.
My name is Courtney Goldman, and I'm a NASA OSIM intern at a Kennedy Space Center.
I'm currently working with the Psychophysiology Research Lab.
I study how nitrogen functions in extreme environments.
In bioinformatics for spacecraft production.
The synthesis analysis of multidimensional ozone measurements.
I supported the X-59 Quest low boom flight demonstrator project.
I decided to apply to a NASA internship because it sounded like the chance of a lifetime to work alongside the innovators and pioneers at NASA.
We get invited to lectures from astronauts, inspiring researchers, and get to hear about smaller missions that I wouldn't have known about.
And being able to work with all of the amazing people here has truly been out of this world.
I like feeling like I'm contributing to something bigger than just me.
All the different projects that they're funding or different projects that they're investing their resources in is really inspiring.
And NASA did an excellent job providing me with meaningful work and making sure that everyone on the team felt included and involved.
From daily or weekly check-ins, my mentors guided and advised me through my projects and any help that I needed.
I feel that NASA is a source of innovation and inspiration for people of all ages and backgrounds.
But you're also around people that are humble, driven, again, passionate, really coming to work, wanting to work, because they care so much about this goal, this mission.
And all NASA wants to see is that you share that passion as well.
Always remain persistent. Everything doesn't happen the moment you want it to happen. Everything happens when it's supposed to happen. So if you apply 2 or 3 times and you don't get accepted, keep trying.
We are the Artemis generation, and I am proud and so grateful to take part in getting the next man and the first woman to the moon.
NASA welcomes everyone. It welcomes you.
If you're interested in NASA at all, apply online today. I did not think that I could get an internship with NASA, but I applied anyway, and so I think you should too.
And hi, everybody. Welcome to All Things Aviation and Aerospace. I'm Vince Mickens. Let's talk about NASA, shall we? More specifically, how about NASA's Pathways internship program? And some of the folks that have actually gone through the program and are now successfully working at NASA in various areas. We're going to talk to a couple of people today that you'll see in terms of the roundtable. As a matter of fact, I will, as I talk about that and introduce everybody, let me tell you a little bit more about who is with us today on this program, that we're going to really cover some very interesting things. So the Pathways internship program is quite a program that offers a lot of opportunities in reference to NASA. And I was talking about it earlier. One of the things that's really exciting about it is, yes, you can go on a track to be an astronaut and things of that nature, but there's so many other things that NASA offers as opportunities. And there's so many things that NASA does. It's kind of endless, to tell you the truth. So if you have an interest or a skill set, it most likely applies somewhere within NASA. So keep that in mind as we talk about that today. I'll first do a quick introduction of who's on the panel, and then we'll just kind of dive into some conversation. I'd like to introduce Mai Miller. Mai is the Pathways Internship Program Coordinator, specifically for the Kennedy Space Center. Did I say it right, Mai?
That's correct.
Okay, good. So, but welcome to All Things Aviation and Aerospace.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to have you on, and looking forward to hear your expertise about everything that has to do with what NASA offers. And then we have some interns, and we have a couple of people that went through the program that are now working for NASA. So I'll start with Cedric Anderson. Cedric is a Pathways software engineering intern. who's in the middle of the program right now and doing his thing. Cedric is a homeboy from St. Louis. We'll talk about that later. Cedric, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. And by the way, Cedric is at Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. And then we have SanJog Gururaj.
Got it right.
I said it right?
Yeah, SanJog Gururaj.
Okay, good, because I'm calling you SanJog the rest of the show. SanJog, he is also a software engineer, specifically an intern. But SanJog, you finished your internship program, so you're now working for NASA.
Mm-hmm.
And you're also at Marshall.
Yes, I'm with Cedric, yeah.
Okay, great. Then we'd like to welcome Mercedes George, who is she's a human resources intern now, but she's basically a business intern who is working in the human resource area. I just found out just before we got started. And she's at the Johnson Space Center in Houston, where they were dodging all kinds of crazy weather out there. Mercedes, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Vince. Pleasure to be here.
It's great to have you. Last but not least, Jaden Chambers. Jaden is actually a mechanical engineer, but he is a robotics engineer at the Kennedy Space Center with emphasis on robotics engineering, which I look forward to hearing more about, because I think that's a big deal these days with the space exploration coming up and some of the things that are even currently going on, for example, on Mars, et cetera, from Jet Propulsion Laboratory. But he's at the Kennedy Space Center. Jaden, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's really great. I was telling you guys before we got started, trying to clear my screen here, before we got started, that the primary thing with all things aviation and aerospace is to let young people in particular know, and let their parents and their teachers and their counselors and their advisors, et cetera, but let them all know about the plethora of opportunities in an organization like NASA. And that, yes, you can be some of the things that we hear about every day, as I mentioned earlier, but you guys are representative of other areas that people don't necessarily think about. Also, all of you have backgrounds that are pretty interesting in terms of the paths you've taken to get where you are, the interests that you have, the things that you've emphasized in terms of what you have wanted to do with your careers and things like that. And I was looking at your backgrounds earlier, and it's pretty cool that you guys can find that kind of synergy, if you will, at an organization again like NASA. So very cool. And then Maya, you have an interesting background too. So what you did before NASA was I'd love to hear more about as well. So I really want to kind of start with that. And I think, I'm not giving him favoritism because he's from my hometown, but Cedric, homeboy from St. Louis. No, Cedric, your path has been quite a path, actually. Can you kind of talk about that for a minute and give us an idea of how you have, wormed your way through to where you are now?
Yeah, I feel like we should have a obligatory St. Louis style theme song right now to introduce us. But
okay.
Yeah, but like you said,
Cedric, you promised me you would not derail. No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that.
I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Yeah, but just like Vince said, I did have a very eclectic way to get to NASA. Like I said, pretty like most people here at NASA, we all have a fascination with space and rockets and doing cool stuff with the stars. But at an earlier age, I had I wasn't applying myself in school correctly, and back then it was, teacher told me just, hey, NASA's not meant for everybody. And I didn't take it personal. It was just like, hey, those are some very exceptional people that work there. It was no big deal. And I just decided to go out my way, just go and just be blue collar work, which I absolutely love, and I love the people that I worked with. And when you have that kind of
example of what you did, because you also served.
Yes, sir, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was did 8 years in the Marine Corps.
Run us through that real quick.
Yeah, so my first enlist, I enlisted in 2003. I went to MCRD San Diego, and I was 17 years old. And I enlisted. I've like always been fascinated with, just aircraft, flying, and preferably just mostly motors, engines. Absolutely loved them.
Okay, and that's Marine Corps. For people who don't know what MCRD is.
Okay, yes, Marine Corps Recruit Depot. I'm sorry about that. We're so used to saying acronyms around here, so I just spit them out and don't.
That's our life in aviation and aerospace. It's a bunch of acronyms, but I try to spell it out for people that may not be familiar. But go ahead.
Yeah, and my first enlistment I was a jet engine mechanic for the CH-53 Echoes and the just CH-53 Deltas, and I just learned and studied how to build jet engines. I loved seeing that we were able to start at like the zero bearing of a turbo shaft T64 engine and build it up until you put the PT, the power turbine on, and then it goes off to test cell. We name the motor, and then they start it up, and it's just cool to see all those, everything just starting up, the T2, T4 temps going up, and it's like, yo, we just built that motor. It's doing everything it's supposed to do, and just was absolutely fascinated. Got good enough that I became a collateral duty inspector, a CDI. So basically, I had to inspect each major phase of the build to make sure it was actually assembled correctly to the naval aviation technical publications. And
so I can tell you're real passionate about that. How did that go from turning wrenches basically and that type of thing to being a software engineer?
I guess you could
that's a bit of a jump.
It is very big. It's like I said, it happened when I had a teacher at St. Louis University. She told me she was like, you really have the personality traits that make a good software engineer. And I was, whoa, teacher actually said something good to me. And I was like, I just ran with it. After that, I was just like, oh my god, my head just got super inflated. So, and then it was Claudia Dickens. I'll never forget her. And I got so inflated, I decided I couldn't even type. And I was like, I'm gonna go be a software engineer at NASA. That was quite the long shot. Got turned down at JPL. Well, they just never responded. And then just spent the entire summer practicing, trying to get on a SanJog's level with this school, and just trying to, just become good stuff to make a software engineer. And I applied for the Pathways internship, and here we are now talking.
So you persistent. So persistence was a big factor with it, because you were determined. After somebody encouraged you and told you, yeah, you got abilities, you got things that you can do, you were like, oh, well, let me go explore that then.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yeah. So
yeah.
That's
good. I think it's a great example of that. Mai, I'm going to come to you for a minute, and then I'm going to go to the other intern, Mercedes, and talk about her background. But Mai, you've seen a lot with what you've done over the years and what you do with NASA and everything. Can you give us your perspective about an experience like Cedric has had and opportunities that you guys offer through your program there?
Sure. So Pathways is a federal internship employment program. And so you may see Pathways at other federal agencies. So the way NASA runs their program may be different than what you see maybe at the IRS or the Department of Energy. What I love about Pathways, because it is academic based, we're really looking for students who are pursuing those majors that we need to fulfill our next workforce, right? This is the early pipeline for our NASA workforce, but it opens up so many opportunities for folks from so many different backgrounds and different passions and in different places of life, right? It's not just students who are 20, 21, straight into college, but we have interns who are older than me, believe it or not, and they bring this.
And you're only
diversity.
21, right?
just 22. But thank you, Vince. You're my new favorite person now. They just bring a diversity of thought because of the experiences that they've had and the studies that they're doing from all over the place. It's such a fantastic way for NASA to continue building that workforce that's going to get us back to the moon and then onto Mars after that.
Yeah. It's really great that you guys offer what you do. Mercedes, let me come to you and let's talk about, because your background is also really interesting. And I think the part that stood out to me is, well, it stood out twice because yes, you are right now working in human resources area, but when you found out that you could apply business skills at NASA, that seemed to really like take it to a whole nother level for you.
Definitely. Mind blown.
Mind blown. How did that come about?
So before learning about the Pathways program, when I thought of NASA, I just thought it was astronauts and science. I didn't know that NASA had a business background or a place for business, any kind of business academics. So when I saw that NASA was the Pathways program had opened up, I figure, I'm a Navy veteran, so my background is actually a lot of medical, mostly medical. So I have business.
Right, your mom was a nurse, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Retired nurse, yes.
So you had influence from her being a nurse and taking care of others, and that kind of translated over to you?
Yes, definitely. And for the longest, I thought that was my calling, to be a nurse, or at least be in the medical field. But as I progressed in my academics and I learned that even with the medical field, I wanted to be able to reach out and impact more than just one patient or more than just one person at a time. So as I climbed the ranks while I was active duty Navy, and I started doing more, pardon me, I started doing more administrative work. I figured, I got into the business side and I figured I would pursue both paths. I didn't want to, limit myself to just one path. So when I saw that this Pathways opportunity was available, I figured instead of just serving, I had finished my military career and I'm like, I just served my country. Why not serve the entire world with the awesome things that we do here at NASA?
Yeah. So you had the influence of your mom, you had the influence of your dad, because he was Air Force, right?
Air Force retired.
Yeah. And so still trying to get a feel from you as to where did NASA come into play? How did NASA become a focal point for you?
Like I said, I saw the opportunity was available. And one of the things that I feel like was a catalyst for me to get into the grad program, the grad pathways program, I entered into graduate school because going back after my military service, going back into the work field or the workforce and trying to kind of navigate that. One of the interviews that I went on, they turned me down because they listed the job as bachelor's required, master's preferred. And after going through a few interviews, on that last interview, they said the person I was interviewing with basically asked me, her exact words were, "So all you have is your," pardon me, she said, "All you have is your bachelor's degree?" And I explained to her yes, because that's all that was required. And she explained that even though the job description said master's preferred, they actually wanted a master's degree. So that was my catalyst into the master's program. And while I was going through this program, I still, wanted to make sure that when I graduated, that I had something lined up. And I saw NASA, and I applied. Like I said, what better way to continue my service than to go into NASA where I could serve the world?
Got you. Mai, how do you guys, what do you recommend with that in terms of what you look for in the academic side of things, and what do you suggest to people that are interested?
Sure. So it really depends on the position, right? So in Mercedes' case, she may run into positions where that master's is really kind of the requirement because that's the plan for after the internship is over. In a lot of cases, and we find that particularly at Kennedy Space Center, we've got a lot of hiring managers who are looking for folks who are in that kind of sophomore, junior, or early senior year level for an undergrad degree, because their plan for replacing that workforce with these interns maybe a few years down the road. They may want somebody who's really early in that education. So not only are they combining the academics that they're learning, but they're going to get hands-on technical skills from these organizations. And really, to Cedric's point, persistence is the key to this, is particularly in pathways. It's very competitive to get into the program, but once you're in, we remove that competition for the position at the end, right? So the tough part is getting into the program. I have a tendency to ask all of our new interns, how many times did you apply to get in? Partly out of curiosity, but mostly because I want a feel for really what it took to get them to the first day. And in some cases, it's, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times applying just over and over again. And so really, I can't stress that enough. And Cedric hit it right on the head. It's persistence. You have to keep at it, keep trying. As long as you're qualified to apply, keep applying to the program.
Yeah, it's kind of clear to me that persistence kind of comes with Cedric's territory, with Mercedes' territory, and the other two gentlemen that are already hired by NASA after going through the Pathways internship, SanJog and Jaden, have proven that they can move forward through it and make it actually come to fruition. So, and I'll go to you first, SanJog. Tell us a little bit about you in your internship and then becoming a software engineer for NASA.
Yeah, so initially I applied for the internship as a sophomore. And the reason I applied is because I was just really interested in the space industry, and I believed and still believe that, it's going to be growing and it's booming, and I really wanted to be part of it. And I think that this passion that I sort of established and showed to the program, they really liked that aspect. And so I completed about 4 internships with NASA, and 2 of them were remote because it was during COVID time. And they work very well with your schedule. Anytime you're not at school, you're basically working. So I usually worked summers while I was not at school, and they also allowed me to do a remote internship while I was in school for my last semester because I just wanted to keep contributing to the mission. I was really passionate, so they let me do a remote internship while I was still in school. And after 4 internships and like 1 remote internship, I was able to convert. And the reason why I did the remote internship is because I really wanted to convert with the group that I was interning with at the moment. So that's who I ended up actually working for and converting. And conversion basically means just going from an intern status to a full-time status once you've graduated.
Yeah, thanks for adding that in. You did 4 in a remote, so you did 5 internships. Were they in different areas, but all software engineering? How did that work?
Yeah, so ideally what they do is like you're always going to be working on stuff related to your degree. And once you're done with that first internship, it's up to you, and you have the freedom to find work within the organization. So for example, I'm in Marshall Space Flight Center, and while I was in my first internship, I went out and talked to a lot of different managers and team leads, asked what they did for work and see if I was interested. And whatever ones I was interested, and if they were willing to host me for the future internship, I kind of found work there. And so there's a lot of flexibility, and there's a lot of work in each center and a lot of diverse work. So I'm sure you could always find what you're interested in, and so basically that's what my whole internship process was like. I was always working at a current internship while I was scouting out the future internships where I could work.
Yeah. Mai, is that common for some of your interns to actually do more than 1 internship?
So it is. So Pathways is similar to what a lot of students will hear as like a co-op program, right? We used to be co-op back in the day before Pathways came around. So what that means is a student can stay in the program all the way through graduation. So they can rotate between school and work, which means, going back to school for a semester or two, whatever they need to, come back to work for us, go back to work. And some centers will allow students to stay and work full time while they go to school, either in the evenings, on the weekends, online. So it really kind of depends on the center and what flexibilities they have with how they administer the program. So, and I wanted to tag on to what SanJog was talking about, the ability to rotate around different work assignments. Some centers will do that. They build that into their program, where what they call a rotational model. I think Mercedes has probably had that experience. You work in one organization one semester, come back in the next semester and you're working in a different place. Kennedy Space Center's model is slightly different. We don't build rotations in. Our interns return back to the same team that they were a part of before they returned to school. However, if they have an opportunity to do something different or find different work, we can certainly move them around, which is exactly what Jaden did actually before he converted.
Yeah, I
Gotcha.
actually, when I started in construction of facilities in January of 2021 when I was a sophomore. And transitioning in, it was incredible. Everyone was so friendly, and everyone that works there genuinely cares about you and your career, which is why it was very easy for me to talk to my supervisor and kind of express interest in kind of pursuing my passions of robotics and coding and programming and all that stuff. And he was actually the one, his name is Anthony Harris. He was actually the one that was able to secure me a diverse work assignment over at the SwampWorks Robotics Lab, where I'm currently working. And ever since I switched over there, I very much enjoyed the work that was going on there, because there's always something new with those projects. And I just kind of expressed to him, hey, I really enjoy working over here. Is there any way that I could kind of continue doing that for the rest of my pathways rotation? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. They at NASA, they make it clear that the most important thing is your career, and making sure that you are contributing where you want to in NASA. You know what I mean? So I was able to switch over, and I kind of never went back. So I'm very grateful for that opportunity that I was given.
Yeah, so I need you guys to tell us what exactly you all do, because all of you have basic titles and kind of a cover title, if you will. But and I'm gonna go back to you as oh no, actually, I'm gonna start with you, Jaden. I mean, I know what robotics is, and I think most people do. But what kind of projects are you working on? What are you currently doing?
So currently, I'm a team lead for a project known as the Advanced Compounding Twin Screw Extruder Project. And it's an acronym, but even stretched out, it doesn't really make too much sense. But basically what that is, it is working with, we have this giant robot arm in the laboratory, and it is currently programmed to function as a 3D printer. So separate from that, we have something called a twin screw compounding extruder, which is a machine that takes in two materials, it heats them, kind of mixes them together, cools them, and chops them up into pellets. So what my project is combining that compounding technology with the current 3D printing technology to create a machine that's able to take in moon dust simulant and PLA plastic and print with it as a material simultaneously while it's moving.
Oh, wow. Would that do
Yes.
that on the moon?
Yeah, well, that's the goal. We have currently a working printer called the React printer, Relevant Environment Additive Construction Technology, another acronym.
Another acronym. Go
And
ahead.
that printer is currently able to take in pellets. So originally, we would use that compounding extruder. We'd mix the materials together, and then we'd bring the pellets over to the machine, and it would print with it. And so the things that we would print included these scaled down structures that are kind of scaled down versions of the habitats that we'd want to see on the moon, and those are known as LENA structures. So we were able to get to an 80% regolith composition, 20% PLA plastic composition, and we were able to get the structural integrity to resemble something of wood. So it's as sturdy as wood would be, which is it's pretty good for using moon dust as like as a base material. So we want to take that technology and in the future bring that to the moon. And the project that I'm leading is the next stepping stone in working towards that.
No, that's some pretty exciting stuff to almost futuristic to work on. Sounds pretty
Right?
cool.
It's
SanJog,
awesome.
how about you? What are you working on right now?
So the overarching mission that I'm contributing to as a software engineer is called the Mars Sample Return Project. And I don't know if you guys remember in 2021, Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California, which is a part of NASA, launched the Perseverance rover to Mars. And as of now, it's on Mars collecting samples that we could study. And so the Mars Sample Return Project, what I'm working on, is going to launch a rocket to Mars, and a rocket called the Mars Ascent Vehicle is going to have these samples collected and launch off the surface of Mars and bring it back to Earth. So Marshall Space Flight Center.
That's a year plus from now, because it's 6 months to get there and 6 months to get back.
Yeah. We haven't launched the rocket
just wanted
yet.
to let people know I have a little knowledge about that. No, I'm just kidding. I actually did a show about JPL and about the Perseverance as well as the Ingenuity helicopter, so I'm familiar with it. And I also know that part of the project will have geologists that will do the study when the materials come back.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
So with that being said, and me interrupting you and being rude, what is it exactly that you guys do with that?
Yeah, so Marshall Space Flight Center's expertise is in propulsion. So we're building the Mars Ascent Vehicle, which is the rocket that's going to take off from Mars and bring it back to Earth. And for that, our software team, which I'm part of, is building a software simulation of that whole mission to basically simulate it in software before we actually launch it.
I like flight simulators, but that one sounds really cool.
It's kind of like Kerbal Space Program, if you guys have ever heard of that.
So is this something that you thought you would be doing? And I'm gonna put that out to both you and Jaden.
Initially, when I stepped my foot in the door at NASA, definitely not. I had no idea what I'd be doing, but I wanted to contribute to these missions. I've jumped around a lot, and I've kind of found my calling here because I love simulations and just building software. So this is not what I thought I would be doing, but I love it.
And for me, not in a million years. A couple years ago, I was working at McDonald's. And then after that, I was working at California Pizza Kitchen. So I was in like the fast food industry. And I kind of figured out that I wanted to do something engineering related, but I didn't exactly know what. So entering college, I decided I wanted to do, I think it started with aerospace engineering. And so I actually applied to the engineering program by taking the math placement test. And the math placement test is a series of exams that each one kind of resembles a different course that you'd be taking in college. Algebra, it starts with algebra, then it goes to trig, and then it goes to calculus. I actually failed the very first math test to even start that series. And so immediately I'm like, man, I'm not going to be an engineer. My dreams are crushed. It's never going to happen. But then I found out there's retakes happening in, I think it was like 2 weeks or so. So for 2 weeks straight, I taught myself like the entire class of algebra, trigonometry, and calculus. I just grinded for those 2 weeks and I was able to pass and I was able to get in. And I saw the NASA internship application within like, I think a couple weeks of starting as an engineer. And I didn't think that I would ever have a chance of working there because everyone there is just like genius level intellect. I didn't like, I thought my GPA was too low. I thought I didn't have enough experience and all that, but I decided to just apply, which I highly encourage you to do if you're thinking about it at any age. And because I was able to apply, then I was able to, I guess, get the internship, so you never know what you're capable of until you kind of apply yourself to try and accomplish it.
I am loving this theme, this theme of perseverance and just going for it no matter what obstacles await you. That's fantastic. And speaking of that theme, I'm going to go to Mercedes. Mercedes, you're currently in human resources. What areas have you interned in so far? And tell us about those and what you're currently doing.
So I'll start with what I'm currently doing. Currently, in HR, I have been able to get my hands in a bit of employee relations. So I got to see what how we can make sure that all the employees have all the resources they need to be successful in their NASA careers. I actually am one of the future projects that I'm looking forward to, and I kind of started on already, is actually in the Pathways program. So the upcoming Pathways interns, I'll get to have a hand in making sure that, you know, they're all set, they're all good to go, they have everything they need, and kind of shaping in whatever ways that I can, bringing my ideas and shaping that particular program for future NASA employees. So I'm super excited about that and getting
That's great. That's a lot of responsibility.
Yes, and I am up for the challenge.
Of course you are. Tell me something new. What else will you be doing as you go through the internship program?
So I'm also excited in that I get to work with engineers. The engineers that I get to work with, they all do, it's a broad spectrum of things that they do. But I feel like, especially like in meetings and when we have, you know, these times where we get to come together and discuss plans and ideas and things like that, typically I'm one of the few business interns, well, actually right now, the only business intern for now, that's in these meetings. So oftentimes I sit back and I look at all the people that I'm surrounded by. And again, like Jaden said, never in a million years that I think that I'll be sitting here amongst like the best of the best, you know, the brightest of minds. Never in a million years that I think, because look, I'm going to tell you, for the last, you know, I'm not going to go back because I'm not going to age myself. Like we said, my 22. But for all these years, in my mind, and what I used to tell people is that, oh, when I graduate, I'm going to be the CEO of one of these major medical facilities. That's I didn't think that NASA was going to be my path. I was, you know, kind of on the path to that CEO of HCA or UTMB. That was what I was working towards. But NASA came up, and like I said, like y'all were saying earlier, I figured that was my calling.
Yeah.
Before this work tour rotation interchangeably, I got to work in procurement, contract procurement. So I got to, the way I describe it is, say you go to a bank, right? The accounting department, that's the bank. And I'm not saying that this is law, so don't quote. This is just the way I think about it. Procurement or contracts, we're the ones that write the checks. So I got to, you know, in a sense, get to see NASA's numbers, their financials, and be able to like help with writing contracts. I got to bring my own ideas, and that's one of the things that I really love also about NASA is they welcome you to create. So if you have that creative mind, if you come with, you know, your own innovation ideas, NASA's not the place that's like, oh no, that's not how we did it before. NASA doesn't do that. If anything, they're like, oh, bring your ideas. So that's as a person that's very creative, I get to bring my ideas to the business side of NASA and just be a part of something major. So
Man, you make me want to work for NASA, and I'm too old. So let me go to Cedric the Entertainer. I mean, Cedric. Sorry, Cedric. I couldn't resist. You know, Cedric the Entertainer is from St. Louis. You're from St. Louis. I'm from St. Louis. Okay, enough about St. Louis. Cedric, we talked about your background and everything earlier. What are you currently doing in your software engineering internship, and what do you anticipate doing moving forward? Or
Yeah,
what would you
so
like moving forward?
oh yeah, so just to get started, it was what hearing everybody's story is why I love going down to the food trucks. Is just hearing people talk about their passions, what their what projects they're working on. It's like being in a sci-fi movie. It's like, whoa, what are we actually doing that? So it's
So
always
you're using their stories for the reason that you like to go to the food trucks. I just want to make sure I'm getting that clear.
You picked it up. You was being nice to them about their age. You didn't have to put out my gluttonous over there and go into the food truck. but no, I currently right now split two of my roles. One is with the ISO one, the OCIO. We're taking on the NSC action, which is the National Security Council. That is last year the president decided that as federal agencies, all federal agencies, our cyber posture was not good enough. And the administrator and our chief information officer here didn't like NASA's ranking in that, the whole federal agencies. And so obviously that didn't go well. And so we had this big operation that we had to change our posture in MFA, multi-factor authentication, DIT, data in transit, and DAR, data at rest. And basically how we're all communicating on our networks here, how SanJog is doing his software engineering on simulations, how Jaden's doing his robotic testing, and how Mercedes is using SAP and, procurement, entering all this with the WBSs. We had to secure that. And it was an amazing feel. It was like, these are very complicated systems, as you can hear everybody talking about in their stories. And it was in a 6-month time that NASA went from, our standing didn't represent what we're actually capable of. And to see that time frame, these complicated systems get changed over to meet the president's requirements by the December 31st was actually a pretty amazing feat to just see. And it got some very heated conversations. You got people like, from the engineering, and our systems are going up, space launch system. This is going to down our missions. It got very heated in a lot of those arguments. And so it was a great, that's still ongoing. We're still doing that, but it was a great process, a great opportunity just to be a part of that and see some just a more amazing stuff happen. And the second part of that, as I do with EV-41, it's actually, you can see the whole picture kind of tying together. I work on the Mars Ascent vehicle, but I deal with the GNC, the guidance and navigation control. So our job is that when different modifications for different sensors, different components need to come, they're thinking about integrating it into the actual launch vehicle, the Mars Ascent vehicle. We have to test it to see if the guidance software can actually control the rocket. What this new mass that we put on there, is it conducive to actually a good flight? And so we do all that testing in the Monte Carlos and order statistics to see if it's nominal runs or not. And then after we do that, keep me honest here too, SanJog, is it goes to ES, and then they integrate that into the entire rocket. And so they have all the software, they have to integrate it within the sensors and everything. And so they make it all come up together, like all our software to communicate with the bigger process of it. So it was something I just found out. I was talking to SanJog the other day. It was like, oh man, you see the other side of what we do. And so I got to be able to pick his brain on that. And that's basically what we do. Just a lot of simulations, Monte Carlos, and figuring out what the rocket is actually going to do at all these unforeseen, instances that could happen during an actual launch. And so we try to mitigate.
You guys bring up something though that's really key with NASA. NASA is a huge team, so there's a lot of teamwork that takes place. Everybody has their different responsibilities, but it all comes together to make something happen. When I did the show a couple of years ago with Jet Propulsion Laboratory and found out how many people were involved in the Mars project, the ingenuity aspect of it, et cetera, and it's people around the world with different levels of expertise and different specialties and things like that. So I think it's really great that you can bring up that this is the side that you work on. Sandra works on something else, Jaden works on something else, but it all kind of, culminates
And just
into what you guys accomplish.
And to tie on to that, Vince, just with Mercedes in Mai, I'm sorry about that, Mai. Just their jobs are extremely complicated too. Like you think that just rocket science is just the stuff we do is very complicated. Them navigating these very intricate networks of procurement, HR, all this stuff it's absolutely it's just as complicated and just as fascinating. So
rocket science is hard, but dealing with rocket scientists is even harder.
SanJog said it. There you go.
Couldn't have said it better. But Mercedes is the future CEO, so she can handle it. Cedric, I don't know what these teachers or whoever was telling you, but you're pretty smart, brother.
I think I got a good enough degree, which is a GED. If nobody, that was the acronym breakdown on that. So
no, you're great representation of what you can accomplish when you put your mind to it, no matter what your circumstances have been. That's the bottom line. Mai, I'm going to come back to you. I know you said, hey, I'm still here. No, really though, I was looking at it. So there are I count 11 different NASA centers, including NASA headquarters here in downtown DC. And there are opportunities through the Pathway program that's tied into all those. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? How it's so broad and spread out in terms of opportunity?
Sure. So at NASA, our centers are kind of grouped a little bit by function. So we have those human space flight centers, right? Those that are really centered around the work of getting folks up into space and that kind of rocket piece of it. Of course, Kennedy Space Center, Johnson Space Center, Marshall Space Flight Center, Goddard Space Center. So from Ohio to Alabama to Florida to Texas, we're all sort of focused around those missions that support human space flight. For example, Kennedy, we're very hardware driven, right? We've got launch pads here, 100 launches in a year. That's the target goal for us. Johnson has the astronauts. So kind of depending on what folks' areas of interest are or what their studies are, they may find that one center really draws them toward that work. Even though we're all NASA, we all do a little bit different things, right? We have research centers like Glenn, Ames, Armstrong Flight Research Center, Langley in Virginia. Those folks are doing really cutting edge, amazing work, things that will just blow your mind in the things that they're trying to pursue and NASA's mission for learning new things and kind of figuring that out. So really, there's something for everyone at all of these centers. It may take a little bit of work to kind of look at the centers and see the work that's being done there. But I would challenge anybody to find a center that kind of aligns with their passion or aligns with their interest areas. There's a place for everyone at NASA. And then I wanted to piggyback off of kind of what everyone else was talking about, not just the engineering folks that we have here at NASA, not just human resources or business, but we have public affairs folks who go out and tell our story to the public, who get folks interested in what we're doing, that educate our K through 12 students so that they grow up to be panelists that you see in front of us. The procurement folks who work on the contracts at Kennedy Space Center, a huge part of what we do is working with commercial partners. So we literally have SpaceX on property. Blue Origin is on federal property right next door to us. Those things all require folks who understand the legal ramifications of contracting partners, drawing up the contracts. There's so much to this that I think folks don't even recognize how many different people and different types of work it takes for NASA to accomplish its missions. It is not just, my rocket science is pointy end up, flamey end down. That is all I know, but I could hire a rocket scientist all day long. But it takes everything, right? From the beginning of recruitment and what kind of skills do we need to get this work done. So we're recruiting and we're hiring and we're training. Our training and development folks across NASA are amazing. They find all of these amazing courses and trainers and classes to put our folks through so that they understand everything, not just from a technical side, but also those kind of core competencies and soft skills that you need to be part of a team, right? I joke with students when I talk to them, like, Bob is not getting us to Mars. It takes way more than one person to get us to that next step. And for us to look forward, like NASA has always had a mandate of looking forward to serve humanity, that's going to take students who are currently learning about problems we haven't even identified yet. So it has to start from the beginning, right? And boy, I could stand on this soapbox all day long, but I'll tell you, there are about 12 to 14 pathways coordinators in NASA, and I will speak for all of them when I say that this job is the best ROI, the best return on investment. I have the best job. I mean, look at the 4 folks who are on this panel. You know, I
I was just
onboarded
thinking
Jaden.
that as I was listening to them, I was like, man, she's got a really cool responsibility. You and Andrea and the rest of the team.
It is amazing. I came from a higher education career. I walked away from a director position at a university to come be contract support for this program at NASA. And you do not have to be a space nerd to come work at NASA. We will turn you into one before we're done. But just the number of opportunities we have and the generational change that we will see from bringing folks into this agency and being part of this work, it will change lives down the road. You know, these folks' children will grow up talking about how their parents, you know, were once interns at NASA, now they run NASA. You know, and hopefully they'll join us and their kids will join us. It's really an incredible agency. 12, I'll throw this out there, 12 years in a row, #1 among large agencies in the federal government. We just found out we have won this 12 years in a row now. There's a reason for that.
Hats off
Because
for
not
that.
only are
That's
we doing
fantastic.
amazing work, but we are a group of amazing people.
Hey, I love your passion. I love all of your passion with everybody, but you can tell that you guys really love what you do. And yes, just like all aspects of aviation, aerospace, once you're in, you're in. So you can come from somewhere that had nothing to do with our industry, but once we have you inside, you're not going anywhere. You know, you were talking about your background in education. So you were at Vincennes, which I had Vincennes on my show about a year ago to talk about their program. So I'm very familiar and how they tie into Purdue and that type of thing. And then it looks like you were also at Chapman University College at Bangor and things like that, and Washington State, et cetera. Tell us a little bit more about your background, Mai.
Sure. So I started off in higher education with Valdosta State University in Georgia. My spouse at the time
Know
was
that one too.
a Navy submariner, so that's how I got connected to the Navy. I'm an Air Force brat. My father was an Air Force Chief Master Sergeant, 30 years and 19 days. He always wants me to add that 19 days in there. And so I come from a military dependent background. So I've worked with military students for many, many years, probably a good 14 or 15. But when I actually connected with somebody that I went to middle school with a few years ago, she works at NASA and she said, "Hey, there's this program that's looking for a contract support person." And so I walked away from my position and came to NASA almost 8 years ago now. So I'm still working with students. I absolutely love it. It's interesting because the students that we get are really very high performing, typically academically, right? They're that hard driving, you know, top of the class kind of student. And so to get them here with literal rocket scientists is really interesting to see how folks kind of fit into this culture and find their way through and figure out how to bring what they're learning to this place that has such a legacy and so much history. But you know, no matter how well you're doing in school, no matter what your GPA is, no matter what program you're studying, the key to this and the key to be successful, whether it's pathways or a STEM engagement internship or a direct hire position into us, is we really need to see a passion for what we do, right? There are so many folks trying to get in here that we cannot go with somebody who is just meh about NASA. Like, it's just, you
You
got
look
to
for the
really want to be
passion and the
part of it.
excitement.
Absolutely. And you can't learn that in school, right? That has to come from here. So if you can get that application in, if you can get that interview, that's the time to really show us what is it about what we do that brings you to us, that makes you want to be part of it. And the four sitting on here obviously have that.
Well, I was going to say, so proof in the pudding with that. But, before we run out of time, I really wanted to, I'm sure the audience is saying, okay, you guys, I'm convinced. So how do I get into this? What's the process? What can you recommend about applying and things like that? I know you touched on it earlier in the show, but, can you give us a little bit more, a little deeper dive into the process?
Sure. Vince, tell me how much time do I have? Because I could go on forever.
You can do,
how high level do I need to make this?
You got about 5 minutes. Knock yourself out.
Okay. So number one thing to know, all of our Pathways internship opportunities will be on usajobs.gov. Okay. If you are not familiar with this portal, now's the time to go in and create an account. My recommendation is to build your resume inside USA Jobs, right? They have a system in there, resume builder, where you answer some questions, complete your resume in that system. So that's tip number one. Start working on that now. Don't be afraid of the amount of space that's available for you in that system. I'm going to tell you the opposite of what your career centers are probably telling you. What you're probably hearing in school and what we all heard kind of growing up was one-page, bulleted, succinct resume, right? I'm sure people out there are nodding. That is fantastic for the private sector. That is not going to be enough for NASA. Okay, so if you're applying to NASA in any particular way, particularly for Pathways, I would like you to flesh out more about what you do. Okay, use experiences that you have at school, projects that you've worked on, clubs you participated in, societies that you participated in. Count all of those as work experiences and tell me more about what you did there. Okay, so your bulleted one-page resume is like a coloring book page. I can see the picture, I can see the outline, but what I really want you to do is color it in for me. Okay, I need to know more about more than just I participate on the rocketry club, which we hear a lot. Tell me what you did with the rocketry club. Don't be afraid of those action words, right? Those things: developed, designed, created, led, communicated, all of those action words in there as well. So here are your dates. Ready? August 14th to the 21st. That is our next window of application for Pathways. August 14th to the 21st. That's going to have a January 13th, January 12th start date. So the middle of January of 2025. That will be the next opportunity to start with Pathways, but you need to get your application in the middle of August. So the 14th to the 21st. If you go to nasa.gov/careers/pathways, that is the website for all things Pathways. There's a video playlist, there's some FAQs, there's a resume tip brochure. At some point as we get closer to that window for announcements, you'll see specific links that'll link you straight to the USA Jobs announcement on there. But that is an excellent website. We keep that as up to date as humanly possible. And please just keep applying. Just keep applying. If this opportunity doesn't work out for you, apply the next time that you are qualified to apply, because it's just, you got to keep at it. The only guarantee I have for you is you will not be selected if you don't apply.
Wow.
How's
that's
that?
a powerful statement. You don't apply, you're out of luck. Okay. Real good. Well, guys, we're about to wrap things up. And as I mentioned earlier to Mercedes, I'm getting ready to do my around the room. That's what I do at the end of every show. And I'm gonna, let each one of you kind of share any final tips or thoughts, perspectives about your experience as a Pathways intern, whether current or whether, the two of you that have already moved into positions and that type of thing. And Cedric, not because you're from St. Louis, I'm going to start with you.
Key the music again. No, I just wanted to close out that it's for anybody aspiring for or trying to get into federal service or NASA, it's hard for me to explain just being able to serve your country and being around. I always say I get to be around the nation's finest 2 times in a row. You know, like for my first time joining the Marines, and it's such a great privilege now to be able to have like the maturity and awareness to actually be able to see what's actually perspiring in front of me right now. You know, get to work with Jaden and SanJog and Mercedes, Mai, talking to you, Vince. Like, it's such a great honor, opportunity to do something that's not about you. It's not, you know what I mean? The workload here is so over, it's manageable, but it's a lot. And just to be able to there's something we're doing, whatever role you're in, is for the better of everyone. It's the greatest something I'll never forget in my life. And I'm so glad I got the opportunity to do it twice again and serve around just phenomenal top tier people. Truly a blessing. And that's all I have to say.
And thanks for representing from St. Louis. Okay, that's my last plug for St. Louis. Well, maybe
I'll bring
not.
some toasty wraps.
I still have a couple minutes. What's that?
I said I'll bring you some toasted wraps and some emos next time I see you there.
There you go. SanJog, how about you?
Yeah, I just want to kind of add to what Cedric said, because for me personally, one of the biggest benefits of working here was the learning opportunities. Everywhere I looked, I found subject matter experts on one field or the other. And the better part of that is they're always willing to spend some time for your questions and share. So the learning opportunities have just been tremendous and immense. And, 4 internships is quite a few. And I learned a lot as a college student. And I'm just, looking forward to learning more. And I'm just glad that every time I ask a question, they just have a lot of time on their hands and they're able to share everything that they know. And that's been one of the best takeaways for me so far.
Awesome. Mercedes.
So, Vince, if I was to offer advice, especially to those that are considering NASA or those that's even too young still to know what they want to do, children. One of the things I would say is that as children, we're curious. And somewhere along the way between becoming tweens and teeny boppers and adulthood, that curiosity can lessen some. But one of the things I'll say is that to keep your curiosity, keep being curious about life, keep being curious about the surface, what's just right here in front of you. Keep that curiosity, and if you've lost it, find it, get it back, and bring it to NASA. Maybe you'll see me there.
That sounds like a slogan. I'm sure somebody's writing that down at NASA. They're like, hey, we got a new slogan. No, well said. Jaden.
So I'm going to build right off of that. Curiosity is very important. Grades are not everything. Grades are very important, but they are not everything. Sorry. You need to have a personality. You need to have hobbies and interests. You need to have curiosity outside of what you were doing in school. Like you're going to be constantly told, oh, you need to make sure your GPA is like a 4.0. You got to like study. Like you do have to study, but you can't make that your life. Get involved, join clubs, experience things, have side hobbies, side hustles, like do your own thing that differentiates you from every other fully capable person that you are competing against. Like if you see 2 4.0s on paper, what's gonna pull you apart from that other person? It's the thing that'll put you apart is like the experiences and the interests and the different skills that you've acquired over time. So I think that would be one of my top pieces of advice. But other than that, like just don't let obstacles stop you from achieving your goal. Like I talked about before, if I would have just failed my math placement test and just gave up and just sat down or switched to do something else, like I would have never experienced what I have experienced now. So just keep pushing forward because you don't know what you're capable of until you actually achieve it.
Maya, how do you handle this, man? These guys are incredible.
I mean, they've pretty much said
home.
everything. They pretty much said everything. But I will add on to what Jaden said about seeking other opportunities and not just being purely academic. Because in addition to things like teamwork and communication, also things like resilience, right, and flexibility and decision making, those are all skills that we need for our workforce. As much as I would like to say that every rocket gets off the ground exactly when it's supposed to, on time, every time, that's just not the case. So it's a matter of how do you bounce back from that, right? And we need folks who can fail smart and who can learn from those things that don't go exactly as planned the first time. The folks who don't give up, because we've got a lot of work in front of us. We have a huge mission in front of us, and we just need the folks who want to link arms with us and be a part of it.
Wow. Well, listen, we've run out of time, but it's been really great to hear from you guys, hear your perspectives, and hear what you do in a little bit more detail, and hear your ambitions. It's just been it's been really a really great show. I'm sure you could have done a whole show by yourself. You're an encyclopedia of knowledge about NASA. And I appreciate everything that you and Andrea have done to pull this all together for us to have this opportunity with you guys. So I want to wish each and every one of you the very best as your careers move forward. And I look forward to reading about you or hearing about you as things progress with the things that NASA's doing moving forward with the moon and eventually Mars and stuff like that. That's some pretty cool stuff. So thank you very much, everybody, for being on All Things Aviation and Aerospace. I really appreciate having you guys on board, and you guys take care of yourself.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks, Vince.
Thanks for the opportunity, Vince.
Absolutely. Well, that's another edition of All Things Aviation and Aerospace, a production of Private Air Media Group. We really appreciate the opportunity of having you on board with us today to hear some and gain some very great insight about what NASA offers, and particularly about their Pathways internship program and all the things that you can do with it. Bottom line is, if you have a skill set, it's applicable somewhere in NASA. So, you know, if you're really interested, if you like the environment of being in aerospace and the space exploration world and things like that, then there's plenty of opportunity for you to do it. I'd like to thank everybody and look forward to seeing you next time. In the meantime, please stay safe flying if you're a pilot like myself, and we'll talk to you soon. All the best, everybody.